I wanted to wrap things up, I guess, if I might, by talking to you a little bit about, we talked about IGN and some of these specific games and these instances, but you are one of the few people in the industry that I think that I always talk about this. It's like Jeremy Parrish and a few other people where I'm like, I think this person knows more about games than I do. That's not something I say to many people. I think you know as much about Xbox as I do PlayStation. And so it's very fun to pick your brain.
Yeah.
How is it going out there? I mean, how are you feeling about the way things are stacked up this generation? How's Xbox doing, and how are they stacking up to PlayStation in terms of this new generation competition?
Well, I'll tell you, I think it can be summed up in a way that I think you can relate to here. I'll phrase it this way. Your time at Podcast Beyond during the, front half to 2/3 of the PlayStation 3 generation, the dark days of PlayStation, if you will, is kind of what most of the last, generation was for me with Unlocked. It had been the dark days of Xbox. That was a weird, like, that whole, I mean, the story of the unveiling of the Xbox One and the TV. And
iconic.
I mean, it's all been done, but it really, like, from somebody who I'd spent my career covering Xbox, and I started in 2002 covering the original Xbox, and it was just this scrappy startup, and they had this incredible game in Halo, and then they started to get some of these other great games like Splinter Cell, and then they, you get and like Chronicles of Riddick, and then they launch Xbox Live, which
Ninja Gaiden, good stuff.
Ninja Gaiden, absolutely, and then they launch Xbox Live, which is clear, just a forward-thinking, pushing on ahead, screw dial-up. We know broadband's the future, and everybody's got a mic, and it was such an exciting, fun time. And then the 360 comes in, and they have great tech. They launch a year earlier than Sony. They have a good price point, and they had, just in the first year alone, they had so many great games, between Oblivion, and they had Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter, and Gears of War. I guess, technically it was just right at the tail end of the first year, and Dead Rising and BioShock, and it was like, whoa. And it, that was, of course, the jump to HD, and so, the point is, Xbox was beloved, and they'd earned all this community goodwill, and then the Xbox One, they just screw everything up. They screw it all up, while simultaneously, like, what are the mathematical cosmic odds of Microsoft screwing everything up that badly, and Sony coming back and doing everything as right as they were just doing wrong? Like, the PS4 was, Sony did everything right.
I agree.
Did, from the hardware to the games, to everything. And it was just both of these extremes causing this massive monumental rift. But all that is to say that really, like, the last year and the launch of this new console, like, yes, of course, Sony's still the market leader, and they're going to be the market leader for a while. But it's like, I've seen the tide turn in the gaming community towards the Xbox, and deservedly so. Like, Microsoft has done the work, starting 6 years ago when Phil Spencer was named head of Xbox, and they made backward compatibility a big initiative, and they've built on that, and now acquiring all these studios, and they've made a great piece of machinery in the Series X, and the One X before that, and now, the literally the last thing are the exclusive games, and they're coming. They're still not here yet, but that's, if all these new studios can actually start delivering not 7 out of 10 games, not 8 out of 10 games, but 9s and 10s, as Sony has so masterfully done over the last generation, and the talent's there. Like, I'm hoping, the Forzas and the Fables and the Starfields and the Elder Scrolls and the Halos and the Gears are going to be these 9 and 10 out of 10 games. If Microsoft finally starts delivering those, I'm not saying they're going to suddenly, just overtake Sony, but it really will. It really is the revenge of the Xbox, in a sense of it's. Absolutely. They've really, like, turn the ship around, and it's been really exciting over the beginning of this generation so far to see all these great gamer friendly, developer friendly things that they're doing. I mean, Game Pass, you hear it, like, notice Game Pass has become the story about Xbox. That's like the first thing you think of. Xbox. Oh yeah, Game Pass. That's awesome. Sure. And deservedly so. Game Pass is fantastic. And once those first party games start coming, they're all going into Game Pass, and it's just going to make that snowball keep rolling downhill and getting bigger. So, it's Microsoft's had to play the long game. There was no overnight fix to what they screwed up. And make no mistake, they screwed it up themselves. They didn't invest in developers, and they didn't invest in software. They mismanaged Lionhead into the ground, forcing them to close, and it killed Fable in the process. Their always online policy was horrific for the time. It would have worked now, but back then it was just not a good idea. But here they are. They've come all the way back, and the Xbox is a phenomenal ecosystem now. Whether you're playing on PC or whether you're a PlayStation 5 gamer who says, you know what, I'm just going to grab the Series S for $300 and play on my 1440p monitor, which is all that, the console maxes out at 1440p.
Right.
And you're going to get all those and just have a Game Pass subscription. So they've really done a laudable job that I don't think they're quite getting the credit for yet. And maybe deservedly so, because again, they've got to bring those games. So but as long as they do that and don't screw up all 23 studios games, which I don't see how that's mathematically possible.
Mathematically that's improbable. Yeah.
And I'm excited to see some of these. Great.
I'm excited to see some of these teams do some weird stuff like Playground with Fable and all these others. I'm intrigued, and I do have to give a shout out even to Rare. I feel like a lot of the seeds of Xbox trying and sticking with things and evolving began with Sea of Thieves even, and really sticking with that game.
Good example.
What do you think's going on with PlayStation? I mean, how is your view on how they're doing right now? On our show, we were a little gloomy for a while, but things seem to be a little bit better now. They're obviously a smaller company than Microsoft. They're much more reliant on PlayStation than Microsoft is on Xbox, so their decisions have a lot of weight. It seems like they're going to double down and invest in the teams that they already own, which I think is wise because they're already inducted into this culture. Do you feel like things are going well? And I mean, obviously on the sales front, they're going well, but do you think things are going well for them long term? Yeah.
And I mean, they've got to be working on some sort of Game Pass equivalent. And I don't think that's, PlayStation Now is that. Your audience may disagree. You may disagree. I
don't disagree with you. I think they might maybe end up calling it PlayStation Now, but until you can natively download everything and stuff, it's not the same.
But I do think, that Microsoft they're forcing, Sony's going to have some sort of attractive, reasonably equivalent service. I mean, Game Pass is Netflix right now. So is Sony going to, do they have an HBO Max in their back pocket that they're working on? But so they're behind Microsoft in the services department and in well, I guess backwards. I was trying to think of a better word than just backwards compatibility, like the sort of historical preservation. We could phrase it that way. And part of that, I understand that part of that's architectural because of the cell processor, whereas Microsoft's been x86 the whole time. But still, the bottom line for consumers is, PlayStation, you cannot, there was the whole thing with the Vita store that was going to get shut down and the outcry over that, really a contrast to what Microsoft has been doing. So yeah, Sony's had some missteps in that regard, but at the end of the day, the PlayStation 5 is a great piece of hardware and it's with a great controller, which, I mean, I still just prefer the Xbox controller ergonomically, but I think the DualSense it's such a leap forward. Like, this will piss off most of your audience. I've never been a big fan of any of the DualShocks in comparison to the Xbox controllers. Just again, purely on ergonomics. I don't think they're like trash or anything like that.
No, I understand.
But I think the DualSense is such a leap forward relative to where they were with the DualShock 4, whereas Microsoft obviously just iterated very little because, I mean, I think they had less room to improve. But anyway, I'm getting off track.
No,
The DualSense is great. The console's great. It's basically, I think at the end of the day, as long as those Sony studios, the PlayStation studios, keep delivering 9s and 10s, PlayStation dominance will continue, even as Microsoft continues to up the ante and get better and better and do more and more great stuff. Just the market swung so much from the 360 PS2 generation, 360 PS3 generation to the PS4 Xbox One generation. And the fact is now everybody's in these digital ecosystems. It's so much harder to switch now. Like right. you might augment and you might get both at some point, but it's so much harder to switch because you're just all your friends are in one ecosystem, both as far as the online service and in terms of I own digital games on this, right. And do I really want to just totally leave that behind and switch to Microsoft? I mean, maybe some people will.
And achievements and trophies and all. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. Yeah,
exactly. So, totally. But bottom line, like Sony's, I think they could be doing more. But they've kind of the first party studios are going to keep them on top as long as they keep pumping out those 9s and 10s.